This is the Elusive Gathering podcast, where true crime meets chilling mystery and where every case leaves you questioning the truth. Tonight, we take you to the small town of West Memphis, Arkansas, a place where children played along muddy creeks and neighbors left doors unlocked. Until May 1993. That spring, 3 8-year-old boys went missing. By nightfall, their bodies would be found in a drainage ditch, tied, beaten, and left like broken dolls in the woods. The crime shocked the nation. But what followed was a storm of fear, hysteria, and rushed justice. 3 teenagers, Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly, were arrested, tried, and convicted. But were they guilty? Or were they sacrificed to public panic and media pressure? This is the terrifying, tangled story of the West Memphis Three. The discovery, May 6, 1993.
It was a warm spring evening when the nightmare began. 3 little boys, Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore, left their homes on their bicycles, never to return. By nightfall, worried parents scoured the neighborhood. Police joined the search, flashlights sweeping across Robin Hood Hills, a patch of woods known to local kids as both playground and secret hideout. On May 6th, a juvenile parole officer noticed something strange, a child's sneaker floating in a muddy drainage ditch. Officers pulled it from the water and then found the second shoe. What they found next would scar West Memphis forever. Stevie, Christopher, and Michael had been stripped naked. Their wrists were tied to their ankles with shoelaces, some of the knots amateurish, others tightly bound. Christopher's body showed horrific injuries, severe mutilation of the genital area. The boys had been beaten, bruised, and drowned. There were no fingerprints, no murder weapons, no clear suspect. Just 3 small bodies in a shallow grave of mud and water. The media descended. The town's heartbeat turned to panic. Someone had killed their children, and that someone had to be found.
Panic in the hunt for a killer.
In the days following the grim discovery, fear swept through West Memphis like wildfire. The brutal nature of the crime fueled whispers of something darker. Satanic rituals, cults hiding in plain sight, evil lurking just beyond the suburban streets. Detectives Gary Gitchell and Bryn Ridge led the investigation. They followed every rumor, every frightened tip. Robed figures seen in the woods, strange fires late at night, mutilated animals found in nearby fields. Then came the names: Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, Jesse Miskelly Jr. Damian was the obvious suspect to many. He wore black, read Stephen King, and practiced Wicca. His interest in the occult was well known in a deeply conservative town. Jason Baldwin, Damian's quiet best friend, was guilty by association. And Jesse Miskelly, a 17-year-old with an intellectual disability and an IQ of 72, was easily pressured. On June 3, 1993, Jesse was brought in for questioning. After 12 hours of relentless interrogation, without a lawyer or his parents present, Jesse confessed. He told police the boys had been killed in a satanic ritual led by Damian and Jason. His story was riddled with contradictions. The time of day was wrong, details didn't line up, and he often changed key facts. But the police had what they needed. In the eyes of the public, the case was closed. The devil had been found.
The trials. A town's need for blood.
In 1994, the trials began. First for Jesse Miskelly, then for Damian Eccles and Jason Baldwin. Jesse's trial was brutal. His taped confession was played for the jury, despite its glaring inconsistencies. He recanted, but it didn't matter. The fear in the courtroom was palpable. Satanic panic had poisoned reason. Jesse was convicted of 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life plus 40 years. Next came Damian and Jason's trial. The prosecution had little physical evidence. There was no DNA, no fingerprints, no blood tying them to the crime scene. But they had Jesse's confession, and they had the atmosphere of fear. The state's experts testified that the killings bore the marks of occult sacrifice. A knife recovered from a lake near Jason's home, found months later and never directly tied to the boys, became a sinister centerpiece. Damian, defiant on the stand, only fed the jury's dread. His dark clothing, his reading habits, his interest in paganism, they all became weapons against him. On March 18, 1994, Jason Baldwin was sentenced to life in prison. Damian Eccles was sentenced to death. A small town felt safe again. But justice had not been served.
Doubts in the rise of a movement.
The West Memphis Three were behind bars, but whispers of doubt grew louder. Investigative journalists, filmmakers, and curious outsiders began picking apart the prosecution's flimsy case. The HBO documentary Paradise Lost: The Child Murders at Robin Hood Hills aired in 1996, and it cracked the case wide open for the world to see. Viewers saw the coerced confession for what it was: a frightened teenager manipulated by seasoned investigators. They saw the absence of physical evidence, the reliance on hearsay and fear-mongering. They saw a community more interested in closure than truth. Celebrities joined the cause. Johnny Depp, Eddie Vedder, Natalie Maines, and filmmaker Peter Jackson became vocal advocates for the West Memphis Three. Fundraisers, petitions, and legal challenges followed. DNA testing, once impossible, was finally conducted in the early 2000s. The results were damning, but not for the three boys. The DNA found at the crime scene did not match Damien, Jason, or Jesse. It pointed instead to someone much closer: Terry Hobbs, stepfather of one of the victims. Still, Arkansas courts resisted. The wheels of justice turned slowly. The West Memphis Three were innocent but still imprisoned.
Freedom with a catch. The Alford plea.
In 2010, after years of tireless advocacy and new DNA evidence casting severe doubt on their guilt, the legal system finally relented, but with conditions. On August 19, 2011, after spending more than 18 years behind bars, Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly were released from prison. But they weren't exonerated. Instead, they entered what's known as an Alford plea, a legal paradox in which a defendant maintains their innocence but acknowledges that the prosecution has enough evidence to convict. It was a bittersweet compromise: freedom at the cost of never being officially declared innocent. Jason Baldwin was hesitant. He didn't want to accept a deal that left the truth buried. But Damien Echols' health was failing after years on death row. He feared he wouldn't survive much longer. Baldwin agreed, sacrificing the ideal of full exoneration for his friend's life. In court, the three men stood before the judge, stating their innocence even as they accepted convictions that would never fully go away. Moments later, they walked out of prison. Free men, but with the weight of injustice still on their shoulders. Freedom came, but it was incomplete. The real killers were still unknown, and the scars of wrongful conviction remained.
The lingering mystery and public reaction.
The release of the West Memphis Three ignited a storm of mixed emotions. For many, it was a victory, a hard-fought battle against a broken system that had stolen nearly 2 decades from 3 innocent men. Crowds gathered outside the courthouse on that day in 2011, some weeping with joy, others burning with frustration that full exoneration had been denied. But for the families of Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, the moment was far more complex. Some still believed in the guilt of Echols, Baldwin, and Miskelly. They had trusted the system all those years ago. Accepting that justice had not only failed the accused but also their murdered children was a reality too painful for some to face. Pam Hicks, the mother of Stevie Branch, expressed bitter confusion.
"I don't know what to believe anymore. The police told us they had their men, and now they're telling us maybe not? How do we live with that?"
The controversy only grew with media coverage. Books, podcasts, and additional documentaries poured over every detail, each reaching different conclusions. HBO's Paradise Lost trilogy, Peter Jackson's West of Memphis, and countless podcasts like ours all dissected the flawed investigation, questioning how 3 young boys could be failed so completely by law enforcement and the courts. Even years later, public opinion remains sharply divided. For every person convinced the West Memphis Three were victims, another claims they simply played the system and got away with murder. And the most haunting truth of all, the real killer or killers were never found.
Theories, suspects, and unanswered questions.
Even after the release of the West Memphis Three, the question that lingers like a shadow in the Arkansas heat is, if not them, then who? Over the years, numerous theories have surfaced.
1. The stepfathers.
The most prominent alternative suspect was Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of Stevie Branch. Hobbs' hair was found in one of the ligatures used to bind the boys, although this could have been secondary transfer. More suspicious was his alleged violent past. Neighbors and family members described him as abusive, and his timeline the night of the murders was riddled with inconsistencies. He denied any involvement, but whispers still follow him to this day.
2. The Mr. Bojangles incident.
On the night of May 5, 1993, just hours after the boys vanished, a bloodied and disoriented black man entered the Bojangles restaurant a mile from the crime scene. Police were called but never followed up. The man vanished. Some believe this was the real killer, someone who stumbled into public, panicked, and disappeared into the night.
3. Satanic panic run wild.
There's also the theory that the murders were not committed by any singular boogeyman, but rather the result of societal hysteria, that investigators became so blinded by the fear of Satanism that they ignored evidence and railroaded innocent boys.
4. Unknown sexual predator.
Some theorize the killer was a previously unidentified sexual predator who targeted the boys. The brutality of the crime and the specific mutilations point to deep sexual rage or sadism, possibly from someone who had killed before and may have killed again. The most chilling reality? The crime scene was so contaminated by the time forensic teams arrived that crucial evidence was likely lost forever.
The questions that will never be answered.
Why were the boys left naked, hogtied, and mutilated in a drainage ditch mere miles from their homes? Did the killer live in West Memphis and quietly slip away while the town consumed itself with panic? Or did the real killer attend the trials, blend into the crowd, and smile as 3 teenagers were convicted in their place? The case remains open and DNA advancements continue. But time is cruel. Witnesses die, memories fade, and the truth becomes more slippery than ever.
Media frenzy and cultural impact.
The West Memphis Three case didn't just stay confined to Arkansas courtrooms. It exploded into national media and eventually global awareness. The HBO documentaries Paradise Lost, The Child Murders at Robin Hood Hills, and its sequels, shocked viewers, exposing questionable police work, forced confessions, and prosecutorial misconduct. Celebrities like Johnny Depp, Eddie Vedder, and Natalie Maines championed their cause. Bands wrote songs. True crime podcasts, books, and documentaries fueled public fascination. The case became a symbol, not just of injustice but of how fear and public opinion can poison reason. The small town of West Memphis, once just another speck on the map, became infamous, forever linked to tragedy, controversy, and mystery.
Life after prison. Freedom at a cost.
On August 19, 2011, after nearly 2 decades behind bars, Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly entered Alford pleas, securing their freedom while still carrying the legal weight of guilt. Damian Eccles moved to New York and became an author, artist, and speaker on wrongful convictions. Yet, he's open about the trauma that prison inflicted. Years on death row took a permanent toll on his body and psyche. Jason Baldwin attended law school and now works on behalf of other wrongfully convicted prisoners. He's soft-spoken but focused, determined to turn his pain into advocacy. Jesse Miskelly retreated from the public eye, haunted by the manipulation and ridicule he endured. He still struggles with trust and mental health issues. Though they are free, the 3 men still live under the shadow of injustice. Their names are forever linked to one of the most horrific crimes in modern American history, a crime they insist they didn't commit.
The nightmare that never ended.
The West Memphis Three case is not just a tragedy for 3 young boys who never came home. It's a tragedy for the community that failed them, a legal system that demanded easy answers over the truth, and 3 young men who became victims of public hysteria. To this day, no one knows who killed Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore. The woods where their bodies were found have grown over, but the darkness remains. There are still whispers in West Memphis. Theories, accusations, and secrets buried just beneath the surface. Some locals refuse to discuss it. Others still believe the wrong men went free. What remains is a cautionary tale: how quickly fear can become fact, how suspicion can become condemnation, and how sometimes justice never comes.
This has been the Elusive Gathering podcast, where true crime meets chilling mystery. If you found this story as haunting and infuriating as we did, subscribe for more. We bring you the darkest cases, the questions that never rest, and the truths that may never come to light. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious,